Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the San Francisco Board of Supervisors meeting of March 17, 2015, and happy St. Patrick's Day to everybody. Madam Clerk, can you please call the roll?
Supervisor Avalos.
Present.
Avalos present. President Breed.
Here.
Breed present. Supervisor Campos.
Present.
Campos present. Supervisor Christensen.
Present.
Christensen present. Supervisor Cohen. Cohen present. Supervisor Farrell.
Present.
Farrell present. Supervisor Kim.
Top of the morning.
Kim present. Supervisor Marr.
Here.
Marr present. Supervisor Tang.
Present.
Tang present. Supervisor Wiener. Not present. Supervisor Yee.
Present.
Yee present. Madam President, you have a quorum.
Okay, would everyone please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance?
The flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice.
Okay, at this time, are there any changes to the February 10th board meeting minutes? Seeing no members on the roster, is there a motion to approve those minutes pending public comment? Moved by Supervisor Christensen, seconded by Supervisor Farrell. Without objection, those minutes will be approved after public comment. Madam Clerk, are there any communications?
Yes, Madam President, I have received a communication from Supervisor Scott Wiener informing us of his trip to Washington, D.C. with the Metropolitan Transportation Commission for a regional transit funding lobbying trip and requests to be excused from today's meeting.
Okay, is there a motion to excuse? Motioned by Supervisor Farrell, seconded by Supervisor Marr. Can we take this without objection? Supervisor Wiener is excused from today's meeting. Okay, Madam Clerk, can you please read the consent agenda?
Items 1 through 13 comprise the consent calendar. These items are considered routine unless a member objects. An item may be removed and considered separately.
Okay, seeing no members on the roster, Madam Clerk, can you please call the roll?
On items 1 through 13, Supervisor Marr.
Aye.
Marr, aye. Supervisor Tang.
Aye.
Tang, aye. Supervisor Wiener is excused. Supervisor Yee.
Aye.
Yee, aye. Supervisor Avalos.
Aye.
Avalos, aye. Supervisor Breed.
Aye.
Breed, aye. Supervisor Campos.
Aye.
Campos, aye. Supervisor Christensen.
Aye.
Christensen, aye. Supervisor Cohen.
Aye.
Cohen, aye. Supervisor Farrell.
Aye.
Farrell, aye. Supervisor Kim.
Aye.
Kim, aye. There are 10 ayes.
These items are finally passed and adopted unanimously. Madam Clerk, can you please call the next item?
Item 14 is an ordinance to amend the Business and Tax Regulations Code to repeal Article 3, which contains a license requirement and tax on transient merchants, which are both currently suspended.
Same house, same call. Without objection, this ordinance is passed on the first reading. Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Item 15 is an ordinance to retroactively authorize the Office of the Treasurer Tax Collector to accept and expend a $100,000 grant from Earned Assets Resource Network for implementing the Office of Financial Empowerment Kindergarten to College program and to amend the annual salary ordinance for fiscal years 2014-15 through 2015-16 to provide for the creation of one grant-funded position in the Office of Financial Empowerment.
Same house, same call. Without objection, this ordinance is passed on the first reading unanimously. Madam Clerk, can you call item number 16?
Item 16 is an ordinance to retroactively authorize the Department of Technology and of Contract Administration to enter into the Second Amendment of an agreement between the city and AT&T for the city's telecommunications services by extending the term of the agreement through December 31st, 2015, and increasing the not-to-exceed amount to approximately $98 million.
Same house, same call. Without objection, this ordinance is passed on the first reading unanimously. Madam Clerk, can you please call the next item?
Item 17 is an ordinance to amend the administrative code to provide procedures for the issuance of power revenue bonds by the Public Utilities Commission of the City and County of San Francisco.
Same house, same call. Without objection, this item is passed on the first reading unanimously. Madam Clerk, can you please call the next item?
Item 18 is an ordinance to approve the issuance and sale of revenue bonds by the Public Utilities Commission in an aggregate principal amount not to exceed $48 million to finance various capital projects consisting of reconstruction or replacement of existing water, electric, power facilities, and the acquisition, construction, installation, or rehabilitation of equipment or facilities for renewable energy and energy conservation, and approving the department's CEQA determination.
Same House, same call. Without objection, item number 18 passes on the first reading unanimously. Madam Clerk, can you please call item number 19?
Item 19 is an ordinance to authorize the settlement of the lawsuit filed by the people of the state of California by and through the Bay Area Air Quality Management District against San Francisco for approximately $31,000. The lawsuit was filed on March 27, 2012 in Superior Court.
Same House, same call.
Madam President, I understand Supervisor Marr and Supervisor Avalos need to be excused from this vote.
Okay, is there a motion to excuse Supervisor Avalos and Supervisor Marr? Motion by Supervisor Campos, seconded by Supervisor Farrell. Without objection, these two are excused. Madam Clerk, on the item, can you please call the roll?
On item 19, Supervisor Tang.
Aye.
Tang, aye. Supervisor Yee.
Aye.
Yee, aye. Supervisor Breed.
Aye.
Breed, aye. Supervisor Campos.
Aye.
Campos, aye. Supervisor Christensen.
Aye.
Christensen, aye. Supervisor Cohen.
Aye.
Cohen, aye. Supervisor Farrell.
Aye.
Farrell, aye. Supervisor Kim. Kim, aye. There are 8 ayes.
Okay, this ordinance is passed unanimously on the first reading. Madam Clerk, can you please call item number 20?
Item 20 is a resolution to determine that the transfer of a Type 48 on sale general public premises license from 1501 Folsom Street, 308 11th Street to the same address will serve the public convenience and recommending that the California Department of Alcoholic Beverage Control impose conditions on the issuance of this license.
Supervisor Marr. Okay. Madam Clerk, can you please call the roll?
On item 20, Supervisor Marr.
Aye.
Marr, aye. Supervisor Tang.
Aye.
Tang, aye. Supervisor Yee.
Aye.
Yee, aye. Supervisor Avalos.
Aye.
Avalos, aye. Supervisor Breed.
Aye.
Breed, aye. Supervisor Campos.
Aye.
Campos, aye. Supervisor Christensen.
Aye.
Christensen, aye. Supervisor Cohen.
Aye.
Cohen, aye. Supervisor Farrell.
Aye.
Farrell, aye. Supervisor Kim. Kim, aye. There are 10 ayes.
This resolution is adopted unanimously. Madam Clerk, can you please call item 21?
Item 21 is a resolution to determine that the transfer of a Type 21 off-sale general license from 5801 Geary Boulevard to 225 Bush Street for Target Corporation, Target Express, will serve the public convenience in recommending that the California Department of Alcoholic Beverage Control impose conditions on the issuance of this license.
Same House, same call. Without objection, this resolution is adopted unanimously. Madam Clerk, item 22, please.
Item 22, resolution to determine that the transfer of a Type 48 on-sale general public premises license from 635 8th Street to 115 Sansom Street for the Treasury will serve the public convenience in recommending the California Department of Alcoholic Beverage Control impose conditions on the issuance of this license.
Same House, same call. Without objection, this resolution is adopted unanimously. Item 23, please.
Item 23, resolution to determine that the issuance of a Type 64 general theater license to 1127 Market Street for the American Conservatory Theater will serve the public convenience and recommend that the Department of Alcoholic Beverage Control impose conditions on the issuance of this license.
Same House, same call. Without objection, this resolution is adopted unanimously. Item 24, please.
Item 24 is a resolution to recognize the inauguration of the Children's Outdoor Bill of Rights as detailed in the resolution on October 18th, 2014.
Same House, same call. Without objection, this resolution is adopted unanimously. Madam Clerk, can you please go to the committee reports?
Item 25 was considered by the Rules Committee on Friday, May 11th, and was forwarded as a committee report. It's a resolution amending the administrative code to extend the periodic review of the city's local hiring policy and to determine a mandatory participation level for the policy.
Supervisor Avalos.
Thank you, President Breed. Colleagues, urge your support of this resolution. This resolution essentially keeps us at the 30% threshold for our local hiring policy. And at this time, keeping at that threshold enables us to continue to do the review to see how the overall program is working. I'm okay with it staying at this level because we've also expanded the opportunities for local hiring, most recently extending the local hiring principle to private development on public land. And so we're seeing that there's ample opportunity that still exists as we make these changes. There's also been some good year-long temporary work at the federal level that enables federal dollars to be used to hire local residents as well. It's part of President Underwood's AmWorks program, President Obama's programs. So that's also something that will be benefiting our pipeline of workers into local efforts. So, colleagues, hope that you have your support in this measure. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And at this time, I will call our clerk, Angela Calvillo.
Thank you, Madam President. I indicated that this was considered at the Rules Committee on Friday, May 11th. It was actually this past Thursday, March 12th.
Okay, can we have a motion to amend? Moved by Supervisor... Okay, never mind.
Yeah.
Can we take this resolution, same house, same call? Without objection, this resolution is adopted unanimously. Madam Clerk, can you please call item number 26?
Item 26 was considered at a meeting on, which day was that? On Monday, March 16th, and was recommended as a committee report from the Land Use and Transportation Committee. It's an ordinance amending the San Francisco General Plan by repealing the 2009 housing element and adopting the 2014 housing element and making findings from the Planning Department.
Okay, colleagues, can we take the same house, same call?
Can you roll call vote?
Okay, roll call.
On item 26, Supervisor Marr.
Aye.
Marr, aye. Supervisor Tang.
Aye.
Tang, aye. Supervisor Wiener is excused. Supervisor Yee.
Aye.
Yee, aye. Supervisor Avalos.
Aye.
Avalos, aye. Supervisor Breed.
Aye.
Breed, aye. Supervisor Campos.
Aye.
Campos, aye. Supervisor Christensen.
Aye.
Christensen, aye. Supervisor Cohen.
Aye.
Cohen, aye. Supervisor Farrell.
Nope.
Farrell, no. Supervisor Kim. Kim, aye. There are 9 ayes and 1 no.
Okay, this ordinance is passed on the first reading. Okay, let's go to roll call for introductions.
Supervisor Marr, you're first up to introduce new business.
Thank you. Colleagues, I have several items. The first is, as chair of the Public Safety and Neighborhood Services Committee, I'm calling for a hearing today with President Breed, Supervisors Cohen, Avalos, and Campos, a hearing in response to the recent case of the racist and homophobic text messages exchanged by members of our San Francisco Police Department. These messages sent and they demonstrate that racism, homophobia, and other forms of bigotry are still a problem within our police department and our criminal justice system. Despite the great and fair-minded work of the vast majority of our police officers, it's clear that bias and bigotry still exists. We must address the fact that racism and bigotry are embedded sometimes in our departments, but we cannot let it poison our justice system. To uphold civil rights and perpetuate justice in our community, it's important that the system be free of bias. However, what is more worrisome is that we do not have a clear picture of how these prejudices and biases actually play out on our streets. We want to take this opportunity with this hearing from a number of us calling for it to discuss with our police department and the community strategies to address these biases that question the legitimacy of our legal system. I want to acknowledge that the Public Defender's Racial Justice Committee has a 10-point program. ACLU of Northern California has issued some suggestions. I believe President Breed and to Supervisor Avalos and others have good suggestions for solutions that we want to look at. In addition to the police department and other relevant city agencies like the District Attorney's Office, Public Defender, and Office of Citizens Complaints, or OCC, will reach out to community-based organizations and communities impacted by police bias and the LGBT communities to have a meaningful discussion to address these concerns. Also, I'm proud to be co-sponsoring with Supervisor Avalos an effort to expand democracy to place a ballot measure to hopefully grant the right to vote in local elections to 16 and 17-year-olds. I think it's historic that the youth commissioners and youth organizations are stepping up to expand democracy and to fight for their right to have a say in our city's decision-making. Also, I'm proud to support with Supervisor Farrell his efforts to amend our Retail Workers' Bill of Rights. Last year, I was very proud with President David Chu, now in the Assembly, to work with all the rest of you to unanimously pass our Retail Workers' Bill of Rights. Not only passing that, but also passing at the ballot the raising of the minimum wage. I think both measures act together to help to lift many thousands of workers in San Francisco out of poverty and to create better working conditions. I also think that for women and people of color who are workers, retail workers and part-time workers, it really has a significant impact on lifting them out of poverty. After years of work with a coalition of 40 organizations and now meetings with employers and the coalition, I feel that the amendments proposed by Supervisor Farrell are helpful in clarifying issues, but also minor definitions of employers are changed. I wanted to also acknowledge that former Supervisor Chu at the state level and many organizations are looking to San Francisco's Retail Workers' Bill of Rights as a model so that they're building off of it at the state level in California, but also in many other cities around the country. Also, I'm introducing today a hearing on helping seniors to afford in-home care providers to keep seniors aging in place in their communities as long as possible. San Francisco is seeing a dramatic elder boom, an increase with our aging population, especially with the increase of baby boomers who are becoming senior boomers now, and many of them will soon retire in the next few years. With San Francisco's much-needed increase in the minimum wage, many seniors will likely experience an added financial strain because of the additional cost of paying for home care. I'm interested in exploring the possibility of creating a local subsidy for seniors and people with disabilities who are in the moderate income bracket who must pay for in-home care out of their pocket, which rapidly eats up all of their savings if they have any. And this subsidy for seniors and people with disabilities in the moderate income bracket hopefully will help many of them. But many can't afford or can't qualify for California's in-home supportive services program or Medi-Cal programs. With the assistance of the Budget and Legislative Analyst Office, I hope for all of us to gain a better understanding of the scope of many people who are left in this limbo status of not having access to IHSS support and then barely being able to afford home care workers. And lastly, I would like to request that we close our Board of Supervisors meeting this evening in memory of Mr. Alfred Yee, who's an elderly Richmond District resident that was tragically killed last Wednesday morning while he was crossing Geary and 26th Avenue. As we stated in the press, and I thank Mayor Lee and our MTA head, Ed Riskin, for joining me on Geary Boulevard the day after the killing. Mr. Alfred Yee was the first pedestrian to die this year, despite our efforts at Vision Zero, which aims to stop all pedestrian deaths by 2020. Mr. Alfred Yee was an 87-year-old Richmond District resident. As he proceeded through a crosswalk on Geary Boulevard on Wednesday morning at 26th Avenue, he was struck by a driver of a van who was making a left turn from 26th Avenue. Mr. Yee's son, Ben, said that due to the unfortunate car collision and the speed of the car, his father sustained injuries to his head and legs, as well as internal bleeding. Paramedics took him to San Francisco General Hospital, where he was pronounced dead 7 hours later. His wife, Ms. Evelyn Yee, who is 83, said that her husband has always been careful when crossing intersections. Our city authorities are still investigating the circumstances of the crash. According to the family, Mr. Yee was a healthy gentleman. He performed regular exercise, including Tai Chi, every morning. He was a resident of the Outer Richmond District. He lived in America for over half a century. He graduated from Tufts University, served in the United States Air Force, and then began a career as an architect. For example, one of the buildings that he designed with his construction company, Po Wa Construction, in the 1980s was the Icon in San Bruno, the Artichoke Joe's Casino in San Bruno. Mr. Yi was retired for about 16 years before he was struck and killed. He had always been the family's big chef and had a passion for cooking. Mr. Yi leaves behind his 83-year-old wife, Evelyn, and son, Ben. My deepest condolences to Mr. Yi's family and friends. Mr. Yi is the first pedestrian, as I said, to die in the city this year of a pedestrian collision, though an average of 3 people are struck per day. That's 3 people per day in the city, according to Walk SF, a nonprofit pedestrian advocacy group. Mr. Yi's death is another reminder of the urgency of moving forward quickly with street safety projects like installing of new traffic lights, and we will see traffic lights at the site that he perished, and one on 22nd and Geary soon in front of the Jackie Chan Self-Help for the Elderly Center. Also lowering speed limits, which we're working on Fulton Street and many other streets in the city, and traffic calming projects, including implementing safe streets for seniors type programs, or SSS, elder zones, and other safety measures where seniors live, gather, or walk. I think the voters showed in November that they want San Francisco City Hall to act quickly on Vision Zero safe streets policies, and I'm hoping that we could respond. Thank you. The rest I'll submit.
Thank you, Supervisor Marr. Supervisor Yi.
Just have one item to submit, and it's in regards to planning code and zoning map in specific areas on the Ocean Avenue to rezone it so that it makes a little more sense than what it is now. The rest I submit.
Thank you, Supervisor Yi. Supervisor Avalos.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Colleagues, today, with the co-sponsorship of Supervisors Campos, Kim, and Marr, I'm introducing a charter amendment on behalf of the Youth Commission and the youth that have been working with around San Francisco to extend the right to vote to 16 and 17-year-olds for municipal elections. This is a very exciting moment, especially that this whole effort has been driven by many, many young people. In particular, the District 11 Youth Commissioner, Joshua Cardenas, who has been doing a lot of research on his own and finding that actually, according to his findings, lowering the voting age and getting young people to vote at an earlier age has the implications for lifelong voting patterns favorable to consistent voting. That's very, very good news, especially because in San Francisco, we have a great tradition of young people being involved in their communities, in their schools, in their neighborhoods, and that's something that energy and that effort towards community development efforts and public policy change efforts can really play well as young people have the right to vote extended to them. I've also, for many years, have worked with young people in different ways. Electorally, in the 90s, I worked at the Youth Leadership Institute and Coleman Advocates for Children and Youth, as well as Youthline and other organizations on the youth vote in San Francisco and in Marin County as well. And we found that given some information that young people can obtain about what's on the ballot. They have a lot of interest and a lot of eagerness actually to learn about the issues and debate the issues prior to voting. And that's the kind of work that really makes sense as we're building good habits around how we get involved in electoral politics, that we do so. We allow people to have their first experiences when they have great access to public education or education efforts in general. and young people that because they're in school, because they're living at age 16, 17, and 18 in a stable place in their homes often with their guardians or parents, actually have a very good place to get that skill developed for them that will carry them through their later years. So I'm very excited to be introducing this charter amendment. Of course, it'll go through the typical pathway for city charter amendments to get to the ballot, and we're actually considering this for either this November or the following November. We really want to make sure that we have a very good, long public discourse about how we can move this forward, and in a way that can really enlighten people about the contributions that young people make in our public policy efforts and our electoral efforts. So, colleagues, I hope to have your support when this comes through. And once again, I want to thank my colleagues who are co-sponsors, Supervisors Campos, Kim, and Mar. And I also want to thank Joshua Cardenas, the District 11 member of the Youth Commission, and Adele Carpenter, who is our current Youth Commission director, who has been doing a lot of legwork, rounding up a lot of organizations and leaders in the youth community of San Francisco to put this measure forward. The rest I'll submit.
Thank you, Supervisor Avalos. Supervisor Breed.
Colleagues, today I have a housekeeping item that I'm introducing. As board president, I consider it one of my most important responsibilities to run an effective and efficient board meeting. We have a lot of taxpayer resources invested in this meeting, basically a lot of people on the clock, so to speak. So usually there's all 11 members of the Board of Supervisors who are here. Many of our own staff stay late in City Hall in order to support us during these meetings. We are joined by the Clerk's Office, the Sheriff's Deputies, SF TV, the Budget and Legislative Analyst's Office, Mayor's staff, and our own Deputy City Attorney. Many of us have constituent meetings in our own districts to get to, and the members of the public who come here to testify deserve to know the time that their time is being respected. This is why I try to be strict in the friendliest way, of course, with time limits during our appeal hearings. It's why I do my best to enforce Board Rule number 4.13, which limits commendations to 5 minutes, and Board Rule number 5.11, which says no supervisor should speak more than 10 minutes on any one item. Last week, I introduced a motion which we will actually vote on today to have the legislative body to the successor agency, aka the Board of Supervisors, follow the Board of Supervisors' rules of order. This will allow us to treat the successor agency items like other board business, so we don't have to schedule time-consuming committee of the whole hearings at the full board every single time a successor agency item comes up for a vote. Today, I'm introducing an ordinance to streamline a couple of the group commendations. We currently have restaurant commendations and small business commendations. Local restaurants are small businesses, so I propose that we consolidate these into one. Group commendations are a great opportunity for the Board of Supervisors to acknowledge leaders in our community, but they take about an hour and a half of the time during the board meetings. That's not always fair to those who have other businesses before the board, and the restaurant and small business owners themselves are very busy people and often have to close up shop when they come here for those accommodations. So as a complement or alternative to that, my legislation officially recognizes that January is Restaurant Month in California and establishes the last 10 days of January as Restaurant Week in the city and county of San Francisco. I wanted to thank Gwyneth Borden from the Golden Gate Restaurant Association for their support. And colleagues, I thank you for helping me ensure we are doing the people's business efficiently, effectively, and in a way that respects the public's time. And with that, it is now 2:31. And Madam Clerk, we will return to roll call at a later time because we have a 2:30 special commendation by our own District 2 Supervisor, Mark Farrell.
All right, thank you, Madam President. So, colleagues, I have a great honor of bringing this home forward today before the Board of Supervisors. We are going to be voting on an imperative item later today to declare it Father Brendan McBride Day here in San Francisco. We have San Francisco's home to thousands of Irish immigrants here in our great city, many great Irish establishments that are all, I'm sure, very busy right now on St. Patrick's Day with green beer and everything else. But today I get to honor somebody, and we get to honor somebody who's one of the legends in our Irish community here in San Francisco. And so I want to welcome up to the podium Father Brendan McBride. Come on out, Father. So to give you a bit of background, and it's such a great occasion to do this, I look back on our calendar since my class has been in office. And actually, on our first year in office, St. Patrick's Day fell on a Tuesday, but I thought it was really appropriate, since then it hasn't happened, that Father McBride come before us today on St. Patrick's Day. Just to give you a bit of background on Father Brendan, as he's known to everyone, he has committed his life's work to help our Irish immigrants here in San Francisco. He's been here for over 20 years. He's a native of Donegal, County Donegal in Ireland. He's been in many countries around the world, working from Italy to England to eventually here in San Francisco. He has been especially formative in the Irish Immigration Pastoral Center here in our great city of San Francisco, and I think everyone identifies Father Brendan with the center. He has grown it into a thriving hub, helping Irish immigrants in our city. It is a nonprofit community organization assisting all Irish immigrants in San Francisco and the Bay Area, and is one of the most treasured pieces of our Irish community in our city. Father Brendan has an amazing style about him. I would call it, working quietly and behind the scenes. One of the most humble people you will ever come across. He's both a teacher and a student to so many people. Has offered citizenship advice, job interview consultation, just working with our Irish immigrant families here in San Francisco. He is a lead by example type of person, and who is revered by every single person that has ever come across him, with good reason. Some of the things I think most well known for, his senior community active retirement club lunches, throwing out the first pitch at the annual West Sunset softball tournament, and I had the great honor of being part of Father Brendan's Angels team a few years ago, thanks to Supervisor Ellsmer and dragging me out there. But we had an amazing time out there, and happily we won as well. Talking about the Giants, talking about the Ryder Cup that unfortunately Europe has won. I can say that as an American for the past number of times. But he's such an amazing leader in our city, and it's what we do is honor these individuals outside of City Hall. Father Brendan, you've become a great friend of mine. I want to thank you for that. Your dedication to our Irish community, I think in many ways embodies what we do in the city here of St. Francis. To me, you are the apostle to our Irish community here in our city, much like St. Patrick was the apostle in Ireland. And I want to recognize you for all that you do, and really on a personal level say thank you for being such a good friend and such a leader in our Irish community. And this honor on St. Patrick's Day here in City Hall couldn't be bestowed upon a better person. So congratulations to you. And perhaps before you speak, I would like to give Supervisor Tang the opportunity to say hello also.
Thank you very much, through the chair. I just very quickly, because I know we want to all hear you speak, I just want to welcome you to our chamber. It's so nice to have you here on St. Patrick's Day. I know that you mean so much to everyone in our community. You're there for everyone, as many have described you as the glue in our neighborhood. And I just wanted to extend my appreciation to you as a representative of a district that has very strong Irish roots. And we know that you are there for families to baptize their children. You are there to marry people such as Olivia Scanlon, I know from Supervisor Yee's office. You've been there for people when they are sad, when they're happy, and we hope to continue to work with you for many, many more years. So happy St. Patrick's Day, and thank you for being here.
Thank you. As you get older, you got to write things down. But Madam President, members of the Board of Supervisors, Supervisor Farrell, thank you for this great honour, which I accept on behalf of the Board and members of the Irish Immigration and Pastoral Centre. When I was asked to come to San Francisco in 1996 at the invitation of the then Archbishop Leveda and Bishop Patrick McGrath, who is now the bishop in San Jose, I had no concept of the huge Irish community on the West Coast. I found a very vibrant, welcoming community from the beginning, and they supported my work to establish the Irish Immigration Centre. The needs of any immigrant community are similar, dealing with separation from family, cultural differences, the need for community, just the loneliness of the immigrant, which we tend to forget. They're all hardworking, they care for one another, and all they want to do is to make a better life for themselves and their families. So the mission of the centre is to care for the needs of the immigrant community, young and old. And through our work, we inform, we educate and support Irish immigrants as they integrate into their new surroundings. And a core part of that work has always been supporting the undocumented community, ensuring that they have a safe space where they can come to seek help, much as San Francisco does as a sanctuary city. And we continue, with many others, to advocate on their behalf and encourage Congress to pass fair and just comprehensive immigration reform. The city of San Francisco has always welcomed the Irish, and the Irish community in turn has contributed much to the growth of the city and county of San Francisco. The first foreign-born mayor in the United States was Frank McCoppin from Longford, who was mayor of this great city. And of course, the city engineer, Michael O'Shaughnessy, contributed much. He was from County Limerick. He was responsible for West Portal and Judah street tunnels, as well as the Hetchy Dam, the Crystal Springs Reservoir that supplies the city's water. And then Jasper O'Farrell from County Wexford was the first surveyor and designed a grand promenade that is today Market Street. In more recent times, we have seen community leaders such as the Chief of Police, Dermot Philpott, Mayor Frank Jordan, John Moylan from the Plasterers Union, and Fire Chief Joanne Hayes-White. And indeed, our own centre has 3 commissioners in Bart Murphy, Inges McCarthy, and Celine Kennelly. So it's a wonderful city, a beautiful place to live, and we look forward to many more generations of Irish immigrants making a difference in the city. And in conclusion, I would like to pay a special tribute to the Board of Directors who have been so committed to the work of the centre, both financially and giving of their time and expertise. We have Bart Murphy, Jack Fitzpatrick, Mary Cassidy, Tom Hunt, Joe Duffy, Angus McCarthy, and John Ring. And our staff, Celine Kennelly, the Executive Director, Natasha McParland, and Joan Cuddy, and the many volunteers who help us. I would like to recognise the Irish Government for their financial support and commitment to the Irish diaspora. And finally, to thank you for this honour. Thank you, Mark. And it's wonderful to be here. And now we'll go and celebrate St. Patrick.
So thank you, Father Brendan. And I know we have many of our stalwarts from our Irish community here in attendance to be with you. I want to invite two of them up. First of all, our Consul General, Philip Grant, as well as board member, commissioner, as well in the City of San Francisco, Bart Murphy. Consul General.
Thank you, Mark. Madam President, Supervisors. This is the first time I've had the great honour to address you. I can't think of a better occasion. Our national holiday, St. Patrick's Day, and to honour Father Brendan McBride, perhaps one of the biggest heroes among our Irish community in your great city today. I want to thank you for all the work that you do in continuing to extend an invitation, a welcome and a home to the Irish. It's happened for hundreds of years. It still happens today. Many of you will be familiar with St. Patrick. You may not be familiar with St. Brendan, who Father McBride is named after. St. Brendan is known as the Navigator. And in the ancient Irish sagas, he navigated his way all the way over and discovered North America. So we actually claim to be among the first group of people from the West to discover your great country and continent. When I came here first, I heard people refer to Father Brendan as the Navigator. And I thought it was because of the fantastic way he navigates politics, both those of the Irish community, of your city, of this state and of this country. The way he navigates his own timetable, as you mentioned, Supervisor, many christenings, many marriages, consolation in times of hardship and distress. But then one evening I went to Foley's and I said this to somebody else. I hear Father Brendan's called the Navigator. And they said, yeah. And I said, is that because of the great spiritual work that he does with our community? And he looked at me and says, no. So that's no bother to him at all. We call him the Navigator because of the way he navigated the 17th hole at Cypress Point and the 17th hole at St. Andrews. So, ladies and gentlemen, it's a great honour for me to join with yourselves this evening to honour one remarkable individual. So, Father McBride, from my heart and on behalf of the Irish government, to thank the supervisors of this great city for making today a very special day, Father Brendan McBride Day in San Francisco. Thank you.
Members of the board, my name is Bart Murphy, and I'm a director of the Pastoral Centre. And on behalf of the board, we are delighted that Father Brendan McBride is being honoured here today. Supervisor Tang called him the glue in the Irish community here, and I guess old war horses often wind up as glue. And so here he is with us. Brendan, as you've heard, does his work in a very non-judgmental, undemanding and an unquestioning way for so many of us, both Irish and non-Irish in the broader community here, in times of great joy and in times of sadness. And he's the one that's typically there to lift us up. And we're delighted that Supervisor Farrell, that you have us here today, that we can lift him up and celebrate Brendan. There's an old Gaelic word that describes much of what happens in the Irish community, and it's called mehel. And it's a word that goes back hundreds and hundreds of years that describes how, particularly in old communities like Ireland that were primarily farming communities, how the people would come together in times of need to help each other out as volunteers, much like barn raising here. The Iroquois Native Americans have a very similar system. Well, we're delighted that Father Brendan McBride has continued that tradition amongst us in San Francisco, and again, we're delighted that he's being honoured here today. Thank you.
So, colleagues, as we wrap up our St. Patrick's Day celebrations over the past few weeks, we had our Irish flag raising here in City Hall a few weeks ago. We had our parade on Saturday, and today in St. Patrick's Day. I'm jumping protocol a bit because we're going to vote on it in a few minutes, but just want to congratulate Father Brennan and that we will proactively be voting on this today, St. Patrick's Day, March 17, 2015, as Father Brendan McBride Day here in the city and county of San Francisco. Congratulations.
Thank you all for joining us, and again, congratulations, Father Brendan. Next, we have up with commendation Supervisor Jane Kim. Okay, Supervisor David Campos. Any, mini, miny, together? Okay. So together, we will have commendations from both Supervisor Campos and Supervisor Kim.
Thank you, Madam President, and Father, congratulations, and thank you for everything you do for not just the Irish community, but the entire San Francisco community. Today, I am honored to recognize a few individuals who did incredible work to serve the residents who were displaced from the 22nd and Mission fire that took place on January 28th of this year. While there are many people in this city and in the Mission in particular who gave help in a variety of ways to those displaced residents, and many of those individuals were actually recognized previously by Mayor Lee, I wanted to take a few moments today to thank 4 people who usually fly under the radar and who rarely receive recognition. And I'd like to begin by calling on Ben Ames, who is the head of the disaster response team in the Human Services Agency. If Ben can come up. Ben has been with HSA since 2001, and we are grateful for the dedication that he has shown, not only the residents of the Mission, but the entire city. Since the fire broke out on January 28th, Ben has been in communication with my staff, and I want to thank Carolyn Goosen in my office, to work together to ensure that every person who was displaced in that fire was given housing. Together, we were able to find housing for all 47 residents who requested help from the city, 32 of whom stayed at the Salvation Army emergency shelter, and the remaining 6 residents displaced by that fire found housing on their own. I also want to call, and she's here, Ben's incredible assistant, Kira Barrera. And it's important to recognize her because she has done incredible work behind the scenes supporting Ben's efforts. Kira has been with HSA for 2 years and is in charge of all client services provided by the HSA agency. In this fire, she worked tirelessly with Ben to ensure that all housing was secure for the fire victims. She did that using incredibly creative and resourceful tactics to make sure that the available housing could meet the needs of every family. So, Kira, we're very grateful to you for what you have done. I also call upon Captain Angie and Renee Carcamo, if they can please come up, of the Salvation Army. Captains Renee and Angie have been married for 20 years. They have 3 kids, Genesis, Samuel, and Abby. Together, they run the Salvation Army San Francisco Mission Corps at 22nd and Valencia. They converted the space into an emergency shelter together with the Red Cross and the Human Services Agency to serve the victims of this 22nd Street fire. These 2 individuals have selflessly extended the life of the shelter past the original closing date for the purpose of accommodating these families. It's tragic when a fire happens at any time, but for a fire to displace so many people at the worst housing crisis the city has faced, you can imagine the challenge that we face. The many times that my staff and I went to this shelter at the Salvation Army, I was struck by how the Carcamos treated every individual who was in that shelter. It was just really awe-inspiring, and it really motivated me to see the selfless way in which they dealt with every person. Captains Renee and Angie actually met at a church service at the Salvation Army Hollywood Corps when they were teenagers, 15 and 17. They were friends for many years before they got married, and they have served the Salvation Army at different locations, including San Jose, Modesto, and now here they are in San Francisco. The fact is that when a tragedy like a fire happens, it takes an entire community to help those victims. And it is remarkable to see how the Mission community and the San Francisco community came together to serve the families. But these 4 individuals were instrumental. And as is often the case, people who are that instrumental go unrecognized. And so today we wanted to take the opportunity to recognize each and every one of you. So on behalf of District 9, on behalf of the Mission, on behalf of the city, thank you for everything you have done. And with that, I'll like to turn it over, see if each one of you wants to say a few words.
Madam President, members of the board, Supervisor Campos, thank you very much. As you guys know, I've been doing this for a very long time. And during this time, we've had 9 fires in various districts. And while we're working on these fires, there were fires in District 10, District 5, District 7. And we are just really proud to be able to do the work that we do because of the support that we get from the Board of Supervisors. I think it's really important that we acknowledge the work that you folks do that allows us to come forward and do the work that we need to do, because many of you have taken early morning, late night calls from me when I've got nothing but bad news, and yet you keep answering the phone. So I also would like to say thank you very much to the folks up here with me, because without them, this project would not have come off. Kira is excellent, and I spent very little time at the shelter because I knew that the Salvation Army was running it in such a way that I knew that all of the residents were being well cared for. Thank you.
Madam President, members of the board, I just want to say thank you for acknowledging all of us. And my job was made easier by all the support and the team that I had to work with. Thank you.
Madam President and members of the board, we want to say thank you. We feel honored to receive this acknowledgement. We wouldn't have done it if it wasn't for the community. The community responded really well, and we thank you so much for that.
Just want to say thank you. I think not everybody could say the same thing, but just to be able to come together as one body makes a difference. And it takes everybody to make things work. And thank you, everybody.
And I want to give Supervisor Kim an opportunity to say a few words, but I want to say that we want to thank Tartine as well, and to my colleagues and their staff. There is cake in my office after the meeting that Tartine has brought, but Tartine was so impressed by the 2 captains that Vinny of Tartine wanted to make sure that a cake was presented to them, and so captains wanted to make sure, you know, anyone who has been to Tartine knows that it doesn't get better than that. So congratulations, Supervisor Kim.
Thank you. And I just wanted to take an opportunity to thank the Salvation Army as well. You have really helped us out on numerous occasions with fires, but also with helping us to put together the emergency shelter when we had unprecedented amount of rain. And Ben Ames, you're just a superstar of the Human Service Agency. We all talk about you at the board and how much we appreciate you, and we know that you always go above and beyond to support our residents when there is a disaster, and contacting our office so that we can be informed and be able to support you in your work as well. But while you're up there, I also want to bring up another collective of residents and community volunteers that supported our residents during the fire. And joining Supervisor David Campos in recognizing really the tremendous collective effort that went in. Also on behalf of our neighborhood community organizations in providing a quick response and also financial support for the various families that were displaced by the fire. First, before I bring them up, though, I do want to recognize that many, many people from the community came forward to contribute to the fundraising effort for both buildings, both on Mission and 22nd and at 642 Hyde Street. And I just want to recognize on behalf of the 642 tenants, Hand Up, which was a local fundraising platform that our staff reached out to, who assisted us in helping to set up a group profile for our families on 642 Hyde Street. And Hand Up is a platform that many of our residents actually use regularly. It's supported by Project Homeless Connect, and it helps raise funds from everything, from rental subsidies to dental and medical bills. And it was really key to get the stories of the families out. We had actually had trouble fundraising, but once we put the stories of the families out there, the dollars started just coming in because people recognize them, as their neighbors and as folks that really contribute to the value of the city every day. But a very key ingredient was the incredible staff at La Voz Latina, and I want to invite them to come up, who helped organize a household item drive at Sergeant Macaulay Playground in the Tenderloin and provided Spanish language support to all the families throughout their displacement, including helping them to fill out applications and calling in to check in with them. So I just wanted to ask the staff of La Voz Latina to come up. As you know, in the fire in the Tenderloin, the fire did displace 6 of our households, including families. And all 5 families, thankfully, through the efforts of both Ivy Lee in my office, Bob Beck at Treasure Island Development Authority, were able to place all of these families on Treasure Island. And the fundraising effort of this stellar cohort raised over $32,000 for each of these families. And this was split evenly, and families were able to purchase furniture, school supplies, and other household necessities. On top of that, Kelly and Sergio, who are both here, actually dropped off 2 truckloads of donations from the Tenderloin neighborhood to the families on Treasure Island. So Kelly Guajardo, Sergio Lopez, I mentioned Sammy Rayner and Megan Murphy of Hand Up. And I also know Emily Cohen from Project Homeless Connect, who couldn't be here today, but she also really helped us coordinate many different groups. These are really behind the scenes folks are either neighborhood volunteers or our nonprofit workers who often don't get a chance to be appreciated and go above and beyond really their daily duties to make nightly phone calls, to call in and check on families, attend meetings late into the night, and make sure that none of our residents fall through the cracks. And so I just wanted to say thank you on behalf of the Board of Supervisors, and that we appreciate the work that you did to really provide immediate and heartfelt assistance to our community members. And so I just wanted to give you an opportunity to say a few words, and then both Supervisor Dave Campos and I will come up to bring the commendations.
Board of Supervisors, thank you, Supervisor Kim. So I really just want to say thank you for the recognition. This fire was felt really deeply through the neighborhood. I think, it happened the night after the Mission Street fire, 22nd Street fire, and so we had a lot of the folks that I work with, a lot of the women knew one or more of the families in that building, so we found out about it fairly quickly. And these fires seem to be an unfortunate trend that we're seeing right now. And with this already heightened sort of anxiety around maintaining housing, this type of tragedy is really unimaginable. And so we're honestly just happy to be able to have offered some kind of support, even a small effort for these families, and honored to be part of what turned out to be a really supportive community effort. And we hope that there's not another opportunity for us to show that we care about our community in this way, but should there present another moment, we'll be here to support the community. Thank you.
So, hi, good afternoon. I just want to say thank you to Jackie Supervisor and the Board of Supervisors here. So, thank you so much. It's a pleasure to work for the community too. Thank you.
Madam President, Board of Supervisors, just on behalf of Hand Up, I wanted to say thank you so much for recognizing the work that we're doing, and the beauty of what we're able to offer with Hand Up is technology and tools so that as a community we can come together with a collective response in these really unfortunate situations. So we're really humbled and grateful that we've been able to be called upon in multiple situations, and we're here for the community and happy to help whenever we can.
Okay, at this time, Supervisor Campos.
Just briefly, just wanted to say that I want to thank La Voz Latina, Hand Up, for the work that they have done. En español quisiera dar las gracias a todos ustedes, La Voz Latina, por lo que han hecho. And the one thing that I would say is I want to thank also Supervisor Kim and her staff because these fires happen right around the same time, as tragic as it was great to see not only our two offices, but the two communities, the Mission and the Tenderloin, coming together. It really takes a community to do this work. So thank you, and I'm honored to be a part of recognizing such an incredible group of people. Thank you.
Buenas tardes a todos. Yo quiero agradecer a todos ustedes, a cada uno y a todos los donadores que están aquí presentes y también a Jenkins por reconocer el esfuerzo que es todo el grupo que somos la voz latina del Tenderloin. Muchas gracias a todos. Estoy muy agradecida con ustedes por estos reconocimientos que hacen a cada uno de nosotros y vamos a luchar todos en equipo y hacer mejores las cosas en un futuro mejor. Gracias y que tengan una excelente tarde.
Just the translation. So she says, good afternoon, and thank you for this recognition, and thank you to all the Board of Supervisors, thank you to Jane Kim, and thank you to the donators and everyone who's supported this community initiative. We'll continue to work as a team, and thank you again.
Just squeeze in. Okay, looks like the paparazzi's done taking photos. Congratulations to everyone, and thank you all so much for your hard work. At this time, we are done with commendations. Again, congratulations to all those receiving commendations from the Board of Supervisors today. We truly appreciate your hard work, your love, and dedication to the City and County of San Francisco. Thank you again. Madam Clerk, can we please return to roll call?
Yes, thank you, Madam President. Supervisor Campos, you're first now to introduce new business.
Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. And let me say that, let me begin by doing an in memoriam, and it's the tragic death of one of the victims of the most recent fire in the Mission. I'd like to ask the Board to close today's meeting in honor of Mission District resident Mohammed Shaivi, a 38-year-old father of 3 children, who sadly passed away on Saturday at San Francisco General Hospital due to injuries related to smoke inhalation. Mr. Shivey, his wife, and the 3 children were in their home at 24th Street and Treat Avenue when a fire broke out at around 4:30 in the morning on Wednesday of last week. His wife and his sons, aged 6 and 17, are currently at St. Francis Memorial Hospital at the burn unit where they are recovering. His 13-year-old daughter remains in critical condition at San Francisco General Hospital. Our prayers are with her today and with the entire family. Mohammed Shaivi was known in the community as a kind person, as a doting and dedicated father and husband. The family was very much a part of the mission community, and all of our thoughts and prayers are with them today. And I ask that we close the meeting today in his memory. The second point related to this fire and other fires that have taken place in the last few weeks refers to a hearing that I will be holding this Thursday, hearing to address the problem of fires and to discuss the fires that have been taking place in the mission. There are many unanswered questions regarding the two recent fires in the mission. The one that took place on January 28th, and we recognize people who helped with that effort today, and the fire that took place on Wednesday, 24th and Treat. While the city attorney is in the process of drafting legislation that will look at various fire prevention strategies, and I also want to thank Supervisor Kim and her office who are working with us. I think it's important, even as that legislation is being drafted, that we discuss what's happening in this neighborhood. At the hearing before the Neighborhood Services and Safety Committee, I've asked the Fire Department and the Department of Building Inspections to come and report on trends and data regarding the causes and frequencies of fires in the mission. I specifically want to get information about what is happening in the last few weeks compares to prior trends. I want to understand whether we are in fact experiencing more fires in this neighborhood, and we want to know, to the extent that we have that information available at this point, what exactly is the cause of those fires. During the same committee meeting, I also will be holding a hearing with the San Francisco Public Utilities Commission on the persistent flooding problems that we're dealing in the neighborhood, the area of 17th and Folsom. The last point that I want to make is concerns something that has essentially gone viral in social media. Yesterday, we became aware of a potentially outrageous loophole in our tenant protection laws. One of my constituents, Dev Fallingstad, made public a notice of change of terms of tenancy that she recently received from her landlord's attorney. This notice informed this tenant that effective May 5th, her rent would increase from $2,145 a month to $8,900 a month, a 400% increase in rent. The notice also demanded that this resident provide a security deposit in the amount of $12,500, an amount that they asked be paid by May 5th. Dev, this resident of Bernal Heights, has been living in this two-unit building for more than 10 years. And this is a building, an apartment, that until now has been covered by rent control. Her building previously had another unit and tenant living in it. And about a year ago, the tenant left that unit, and subsequent to that, the landlord removed the kitchen and bathroom from the second unit, called that unit a storage space, and claimed that the rent control laws that have been protecting these units no longer apply because this unit is now a single-family home. Had the second unit been legal, the landlord would have had to seek permission to merge the two units prior to withdrawing the second unit from the market. And since the second unit was illegal, she was able to use this loophole to remove this unit from the market and to now say that this unit where this individual has been living for more than 10 years is no longer protected by rent control. By raising the rent 400% and demanding a 5-figure security deposit, the landlord is effectively evicting this tenant because there is simply no way that this individual can pay that amount. This is essentially an eviction. As we look at this tragic situation, I have asked the city attorney to draft possible legislation to address this loophole. including not only a legislative fix here at City Hall, but also to look as to whether or not the city can legally intervene, including considering a declaratory judgment action to prevent this landlord from circumventing rent control. San Francisco's affordable housing crisis is at its peak, and the residents in my district are literally screaming for City Hall to take decisive and meaningful action to address the wide-scale displacement that is taking place. And if this landlord can do that with this unit, then rent control in San Francisco is truly in danger. The status quo is simply unacceptable, and we as a city need to do everything we can to protect our residents. If rent control can be circumvented the way in which this landlord is doing, then thousands of our residents are truly in danger of being displaced. The rest I submit.
Thank you, Supervisor Campos. Supervisor Cohen.
Good afternoon, everyone. Last year, in response to several concerns across the district, particularly hearing from neighbors in Potrero Hill and Dogpatch, I requested that the city attorney begin to draft legislation to provide a better structure for construction parking permits. Simultaneously, my colleague, Supervisor Farrell, was working on something similar. So what we have done is we've merged our efforts to introduce one piece of legislation, that of which will be introduced today. The southeast part of San Francisco is experiencing a significant amount of growth, and while we need new housing and construction here in our city, we also have residents and business owners that are living amongst all of this chaos. This legislation requires contractors to begin to think strategically about what parking they really need, how long they will need this parking, and whether or not there are other available options that might mitigate the impacts to the surrounding community. We all need to share a city's limited parking resources, and this legislation strikes the right balance between allowing important work to take place in a way that minimizes the impacts to our neighborhoods and to our residents, as well as provides the public with transparent information to hold contractors accountable. I'd like to thank Supervisor Farrell for his partnership in this effort, and colleagues, I also look forward to your support on this item that comes before us. The rest I submit. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Cohen. Supervisor Farrell.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Colleagues, I have two items to speak to specifically. First of all, and to back up Supervisor Cohen's comments, it's not a surprise that our construction industry is booming here in the city of San Francisco. And it's also not a surprise that the sheer amount of construction work is having a significant impact to the quality of life for our residents and in our neighborhoods. Just ask anybody trying to walk, bike, or drive across town at this point. I hear complaints every day from residents frustrated by the volume within our neighborhoods of scarce parking resources, in particular, that have been taken away from construction parking permits. The frustration especially mounts when permitted spaces can sit empty for days at a time. With over 250 permits obtained per week and close to 13,000 issued on a yearly basis, I do believe the city can be more proactive in letting our residents know about the impacts that are going to be happening to them in their neighborhoods. So today I'm introducing, with Supervisor Cohen, as well as Supervisors Wiener and Breed as co-sponsors, legislation that will mandate contractor construction parking plans as a condition to receiving any temporary street space occupancy permit for construction work that requests more than one parking space permit over the course of 3 or more months. The legislation also mandates that permitted on-street parking spots that are not used by 4 p.m. shall go back to our residents and the public for use. The plans will also be made available to members of the public. This legislation makes submitting the construction parking plan a prerequisite to receiving any on-street parking space permits. The components of the construction parking plan include the following: the number of parking spaces requested and rationale, the average number of employees anticipated each day at the site, the timeline and phasing of the project, and a requirement of an update from the contractor at the midpoint of the project to notify the department of any expected changes. whether it is potentially feasible to use opportunities for carpooling or other off-site parking arrangements like nearby garage parking. A proposal for how the contractor will make the on-street parking available to the general public by 4 p.m. if that space has gone unused or project work is complete for the day, and any other information that DPW or another affected department like the SFMTA deems valuable for understanding the impact of the project on the neighborhood and neighborhood parking supply. I do believe that this is a simple, straightforward piece of legislation that will have a very positive impact in our neighborhoods of San Francisco. I want to thank both Supervisor Cohen's office for their hard work on this topic. I'm happy that we were able to merge our efforts together. I want to thank DPW and their SFMTA for their consultation during this process and their iterative work on the legislation to solicit their feedback. Ultimately, requiring this construction parking plan will help our residents and our city get a better grip on the impact of on-street parking space lost during construction projects and hopefully improve the quality of life in our neighborhoods. I look forward to the discussion in committee and ultimately, of course, hope to have your support. Second of all, today, I'm introducing, along with Supervisor Marr and Supervisor Campos as co-sponsors, 2 amendments to our recently passed Retail Workers' Bill of Rights. I want to first start by saying that I fully support the concept of the Retail Workers' Bill of Rights and indeed voted to pass it at the board last year because I do believe it's good policies, and I want to thank every one of my colleagues that was behind that legislation. I also want to say that I'm a strong supporter of workers' rights and believe that formula retail employees should have the right to earn more hours to earn extra income if they wish. And know that thankfully many of our formula retailers employ such policies now that give extra hours to their part-time employees even without this ordinance. My amendments today, our amendments today, focus on helping small and mid-sized businesses here in San Francisco and also ensure that unionized workers' agreements in formula retail establishments are respected. The First Amendment would change the employee threshold for locations that would have to comply with this ordinance from 20 employees to locations with at least 40 or more employees. And the Second Amendment would allow collective bargaining agreements covering employees in formula retail establishments to supersede this ordinance. With such a groundbreaking policy as the Retail Workers' Bill of Rights, it's important to get it right because it indeed sets a precedent for future policies we're seeing spring up in other parts of the country and our state. This First Amendment makes sure the policy truly targets large formula retail establishments and makes sure there are small to mid-sized businesses here in San Francisco that I believe we all continue to want to protect and seek to protect aren't equated on the same scale. And it's no surprise that many small to medium-sized businesses here in San Francisco don't have the same resources or scheduling systems as opposed to these other establishments. The Second Amendment seeks to further respect the rights of collective bargaining agreements that cover workers in formula retail establishments, collective bargaining agreements that, again, as a board, we have constantly seek to uphold and respect. And since collective bargaining agreements are agreed upon by the group of workers and the employers, often which are discussed at length, I want to ensure the legislation respects those agreements. Colleagues, I hope today that the introduction of these amendments is simple and straightforward and believe that they strengthen our current policy by further clarifying details. I also want to say I know there was discussion here at the board or in City Hall around additional amendments and other amendments that were voted down and not ultimately included, and those discussions may continue. I look forward to the discussion that will ensue about this. I want to thank my colleagues and all the advocates and employers that have continued to work on this legislation so we get it right, and I look forward to having this at committee. The rest I submit.
Thank you, Supervisor Farrell. Supervisor Kim.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. 2 things. Colleagues, first of all, I want to thank you for the unanimous passage last week of a resolution co-authored by Supervisor Tang and myself to support the passage of the Campus Accountability and Safety Act, which aims to turn the tide on how sexual assaults on colleges and universities are handled. But as we continue to celebrate Women's History Month in March, I want to bring to your attention that the reality is that while there's a national conversation going on about the sexual violence in our nation's colleges and universities, the culture of victim blaming and misogyny begins much earlier before anyone steps onto a college campus. Moreover, the most recent data that we have about sexual assault and rape tells us that being on or off a campus doesn't truly matter when it comes to vulnerability. I had mentioned that an American woman aged 18 to 24 is the highest risk of sexual assault victimization compared to women in all other age groups. And in fact, victimization can be higher if you don't go to college. Now, add to that picture that nearly half of all American teenagers are sexually active by the time they're 17 years old, and that almost half of sexual assaults are under 18 years old, at 44%. Young people need a clear understanding of what sexual assault is through a curriculum devised by experts, a comprehensive explanation of affirmative consent, and a roadmap of how to deal with a culture that still engages overwhelmingly in victim blaming. Therefore, today I'm introducing a hearing request on the existing curriculum being taught in our public middle and high schools around the issue of sexual assault and affirmative consent. And I look forward to working collaborative with the Board of Education and SFUSD on how we can ensure that we are providing the tools and education at an early age that our young people need now to end sexual assault and rape. I want to recognize that actually young women across the country and also in Canada are spearheading a grassroots campaign to ensure that affirmative consent curriculum is being included in their schools. We want to make sure that we as policymakers are following along to support these young women's effort and to ensure that we are bringing this here in San Francisco. Second, I want to announce the completion of the 11th and 12th Vision Zero safety projects engineered to prevent traffic fatalities and serious injuries in collision-heavy neighborhoods that the Tenderloin residents, Walk SF, our office, and SFMTA work closely on. Most of our residents in the Tenderloins, whether they are seniors, families with kids, live in San Francisco without a car. I can say that again. There are seniors and families with multiple children that actually live in San Francisco without cars. They walk. They take public transit. But they also happen to walk in a neighborhood with the highest rate of pedestrian vehicle collisions in the city. The Tenderloin is home to many of the 6% of San Francisco's corridors that are considered the highest injury corridors, where over 60% of our injuries and fatalities occur. For that reason, our residents take pedestrian safety issues very seriously, and over the last year have been working closely with SFMTA to brainstorm ways to increase the visibility of pedestrians in the Tenderloin. After this work, what was agreed upon was a cost-effective treatment known as daylighting. And recently, over 80 intersections in the Tenderloin received this cost-effective treatment known as daylighting. This pedestrian safety measure has been used with success in other cities, including New York City, Portland, and New Brunswick, and involves removing visual impediments within a minimum of 10 feet of a crosswalk or intersection. That includes parking spots. By clearing spaces near crosswalks, people who are about to cross the street are much easier for drivers to spot. And as a pedestrian, and I know this personally, it is much easier to see if there are cars or vehicles coming forward if there isn't a visual impediment in the way. The Tenderloin, as many of you know, is one of our densest neighborhoods in the city, and we do have one of the fastest growing senior population and, of course, the highest density of families with children. Anything that we can do to make our pedestrians more visible, but also to make it easier for pedestrians to cross and see what is coming along their way will dramatically increase the safety in this neighborhood. Rarely do we have neighborhood residents asking us to remove parking spots, but given the fact that many of our residents in this neighborhood don't have cars, they want to make sure that they were prioritized over vehicles. I want to congratulate SFMTA. Many of our Tenderloin residents, including Central City SRO Collaborative, La Voz Latina, our Pedestrian Safety Advisory Council, our District 6 Pedestrian Safety Group, and of course Walk SF for working together collaborative on this over the last year. And I want to congratulate everyone for the completion of this really important project. And the rest I submit.
Thank you, Supervisor Kim. Supervisor Breed.
Thank you. Colleagues, I just wanted to announce to you all that this Saturday at Ella Hill Hutch Community Center, my office, along with United Players and the San Francisco Police Department Northern Station, will be hosting a gun buyback And our goal is to get guns off the streets. No questions asked. The police department will be there and others, and we will be paying for weapons because one of the challenges that we have in our city is making sure that we get these guns off the streets by any means necessary, and part of that is through a gun buyback effort. And so if anyone out there knows anyone who wants to turn in their gun, again, no questions asked, this Saturday from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. at Ella Hill Hutch Community Center. The address is 1050 McAllister Street. And I just want to thank United Players, Project Level, the San Francisco Police Department, specifically Captain Greg McEachran at Northern Police Station, because they have been doing a lot of outreach in the neighborhood with individuals in the Western Addition community. Our goal is to try and make sure that even if someone's not comfortable with turning in a weapon, that someone in their family can work with them and retrieve that weapon from them in order to get it out of their hands and off the streets. And so please spread the word, and thank you all so much. Madam Clerk, the rest I submit.
Thank you, Madam President. Supervisor Campos.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. And colleagues, I apologize. I forgot to note make this point during introductions. I do want to thank Supervisor Marr and others who are co-sponsoring this hearing on policing here in San Francisco. And a lot has been said about the very hateful and horrific texts that were published, phone texts among police officers. I just want to make a couple of points that I think are important. One, we had a discussion about what's happening at the national level in terms of bias in policing, where San Francisco fits into that larger issue. The reason that I supported Supervisor Avalos' resolution on this issue is because, as I've said, I think that we have a very strong police department that doesn't have the level of issues that other departments have. But that said, the fact is that there are still issues that we have in our department. And the disclosure of these texts, I think, illustrates that point. In fact, I'm just reading that Maturin Ross reports today that the investigation at the police department is actually expanding, that there, in fact, are other officers involved, including possibly someone at the level of a captain. So I think that my understanding is that this resolution was sent back to committee, and maybe this presents an opportunity for us to follow up on the points that Supervisor Avalos raised. The second point that I want to make is that I'm very proud of the work that San Francisco has done over the years in providing civilian oversight of our police department, and a very important player in that oversight is the Office of Citizens Complaints. We are unique in the country in the sense that we have an agency that's independent of the police department that is supposed to provide that oversight. And the point that I want to make is that as we see what's happening with these texts, I think that we need to make sure that we are providing the OCC all the resources it needs to do its job. I think it's in the interest of both the police officers, the community, and all of us to make sure that the OCC has the resources it needs to actually ensure the accountability of the police department. And I think it's important as we begin the budget process that we collectively think about how we can increase resources for the OCC. My understanding is that as of today, the OCC has 3 investigators to investigate all of the claims that they that they're responsible for investigating. And I believe that for us to ensure that we have the kind of police department that San Francisco deserves, that we need to make sure that the OCC has the resources it needs It actually is in the interest of the police officers, most of whom do a great job by our residents, to make sure that those cases are fully investigated and that the investigations are completed promptly. And to the extent that there are any questions from members of the public, ensuring that the OCC has the resources it needs is critical to ensuring the public trust in law enforcement. I look forward to working together, not only as a member of this board, but as a member of this community, to work together with other members of the Board of Supervisors, with the Mayor's Office and our police department, so that San Francisco can become an example of how a city should deal with these issues. We have been a model on other areas, and I think we have the opportunity to be a model when it comes to community relations with our police department today. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Campos. Supervisor Cohen.
Thank you very much. I also neglected to make in my own comments in my introduction of legislation, expressing just the mixed emotions I think that we are all feeling as we read the news. As of right now, there are 10 more additional officers that are now under investigation, including one captain, for racist and homophobic text messages. Prior to this investigation, certainly as a result of last year, the crime, the violence, I've been digging very deeply into exactly our public safety family, what that network looks like, and that includes not only the Sheriff's Department, police department, as well as public defenders and the district attorney, but also employing tools that the U.S. Attorney General's office has available to us. And as you know, the 4 officers that were indicted, that was a federal case that was prosecuted. And there are some things that I've learned. One, much to what Supervisor Campos was saying, is that we do have a very unique system here in San Francisco where we have a police department that is culturally sensitive and aware and competent. We have a unique system also where we have a fair checks and balances that exists with the Office of Citizens Complaint. Miss Joyce Hicks is a phenomenal woman doing an incredible job leading that department, and she is doing it on a shoestring budget. I have been working with her to figure out budget priorities, and I hope that you will be able to support some of those priorities when they come forward. But arming the police and putting more police is not the answer to the entire problem that we're dealing with here. It's also important that we look at continuing to empower the Police Commission, which is a body that was established to provide policy oversight. And that is also a very critical position. We've got commissioners that are up for appointment that we need to spend a lot of time and due diligence on. And if they earn our trust and our respect, then they should continue to serve in that respect. If not, then we do need to make some changes. So I look forward to that ongoing conversation that will happen in the Rules Committee. But I just wanted to also give voice to the difficult time that we are dealing with, particularly going back to the resolution that Supervisor Avalos introduced late last year, and acknowledging that we have our own unique set of challenges here in San Francisco within our own department. No person is, it's an honor to be able to hold the badge and to serve the city and county of San Francisco, and every member of the police department should recognize that and respect that. Supervisor Brady and I issued a statement yesterday, and it's of mixed emotion. We are proud of some of the work that's being done and dismayed by some of the challenges that the department is dealing with. I want to also give a moment to recognize Chief Sir. I think he's done an excellent job in addressing the problems and the challenges head on and not running or hiding from any of the complicated issues. And I believe Supervisor Breed has a few remarks that she'd like to also share.
Madam President.
Thank you. And thank you to Supervisor Marr, Supervisor Campos, Avalos, and Supervisor Cohen for participating and sponsoring the hearing request. I think that we've done a lot of work here in San Francisco, but we do have a lot of work to go. Specifically, when things of this nature surface, we have to look long and hard at what's actually happening in the department. And I know that as someone who works very closely with my captains and the officers in my district, that we have a lot of incredible police officers here in the city and county of San Francisco. And sadly, situations like this really takes the attention in the wrong direction and takes away from some of those great men and women who are out there putting their lives on the line to serve and protect, which is why it's important that we make sure when situations like this happen that they're addressed properly through a clear process. I remember years ago when Willie Brown was mayor, he formed the Police Community Relations Board, which was a board made up of a number of community members, a number of police officers who were from the community, and they would meet on a regular basis and they would talk about issues impacting police relations and the community. And more specifically, they put out a report on over 200 recommendations that really highlighted some of the challenges of the department with a request to implement some of those recommendations. During this process of this hearing, my goal is to make sure that we look into those recommendations and determine, number one, what have we accomplished since I think about 2006, 2007. Number two, are there other suggestions in this report that we can begin the process of implementing? And number three, how do we make sure that we bring back a community police relations board on top of having, the police department and its compliance office and so on and so forth. So I think it's important to continue the consistency of meeting with the community and working with the police department directly. I think that's a big part of how we begin to continue to bridge the gap between the department and some of our communities. And so that's one of the things I'd like to accomplish in our hearing. The other thing that I think is important to bring up is the fact that just recently, Mayor Lee announced that he will be bringing or hopefully funding the cadet program that would allow for young people from San Francisco, especially those who graduate from our public high schools, to have access to a cadet program where they potentially can become police officers. That's one way of working with members of the community to make sure that the communities are represented in the department. We need to make sure that members of the community have access to becoming police officers. So accountability, finally, is one of the other things that needs to be done, making sure that the public is completely aware of the process, the disciplinary process that will take place as a result of these really disgusting text messages that came out, and making sure that there's a clear, open line of communication. We are really fortunate to have, someone who I think embodies what community policing is, and Greg Sir, and he expects nothing less of his police officers, and we as leaders of the city and county of San Francisco expect nothing less of the San Francisco Police Department. So we all will be keeping an eye on this issue, holding hearings, and continuing to work with our district attorney on the cases that have been prosecuted under these officers, as well as our public defender. We have a lot of work to do, and we really know that there are a lot of people out there who are frustrated and who are upset, but we are definitely doing our part to make sure that we weed out those who are bad apples and make sure that they are not serving in our department, in our police department here in the city and county of San Francisco. So thank you again, colleagues, and the rest I submit.
Thank you, Madam President. And seeing no other names on the roster, that concludes the introduction of new business.
Okay, and at this time, can you please read public comment?
The public may comment generally for up to 2 minutes on items within the subject matter jurisdiction of the board, to include the minutes, items on the adoption without reference to committee calendar. And please direct your remarks to the board as a whole and not to the audience nor to individual supervisors. Speakers using translation assistance will be allowed twice the amount of time to testify. And if you would like a document to be displayed on the overhead projector, please clearly state such to SFG TV and remove the document when you would like the screen to return to live coverage of the meeting.
Okay, first speaker, please. Somebody, please? Oh.
Good afternoon, Supervisors. Happy St. Patrick's Day. I'm Peter Warfield, Executive Director of Library Users Association, and the library yesterday installed BiblioCommons as the default catalog, the crucial instrument that people use to find what they're looking for. In a previous presentation, I said that BiblioCommons is privacy smashing. San Francisco and BiblioCommons is censorship. San Francisco Public Library and BiblioCommons is biblioexploitation of the patrons, using whatever their creative contribution is in any way they want with no compensation. And finally, it is deception, and above all, because just the name alone implies a commons, when in fact, this is a completely corporate-run and corporate-controlled environment, just similar to Facebook and other social media operations like that. A critique of this was published in the Bay Area Reporter, January 15th. You can find it on ebar.com or at tinyurl.com/BiblioCommons critique. Today I'd like to talk about some of the things we've discovered with respect to the functioning or the dysfunction of BiblioCommons. It's dysfunctional, it's malfunctioning, it doesn't do basics right. Let's just take as an example, we looked up a local paper, Central City Extra. And when we looked it up as a title, we found Central City Extra, and we also found Pregnancy and Power, a completely unrelated title that has nothing to do with our search. We also were completely unable to find the holdings in paper that are in the history room. BiblioCommons hid that completely from view.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Good afternoon, Supervisors. In order to enforce double parking of private and delivery vehicles in San Francisco, supervisors first have to clean up inside before going outside. Starting at 850 Bryant Street, San Francisco is the only city in California that can't find parking for police vehicles besides double parking on Bryant Street. Blocking a major traffic lane on a one-way street with absolutely no safety caution signs or lights to alert oncoming traffic is a danger traffic hazard. When it comes to double parking, it should be about accountability. Supervisors, we need laws to strengthen rather than weaken. There should be a moratorium set up on issuing tickets for double parking vehicles in San Francisco. San Francisco supervisors have the affirmative obligation to look at the totality, while the egregious safety violations and the whole totality I presented are thoroughly investigated and remedied. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Thank you, President Breed and other victims of the cabal. My name is Christopher Dahl, and I live at 6th and Howard, 14 meters and 10 blocks from sea level currently. I rise to comment on the level of biohazard in our environment, and I would like to focus on the various efforts you have made to combat the plagues of obesity and diabetes. As a matter of full disclosure, I am a sugar addict. If I lost another 10 pounds of fat, I'd be 100 pounds lighter than when I graduated from high school, and I would love to be able to say that. I could lose it if I could squeeze that last monthly pound or so of sugar out of my diet. I would if I could, but I can't, so I won't. My mother succumbed at 77 after a lifetime dealing with diabetes. Her father died in his late 30s from pancreatic cancer. I've avoided both issues, so it seems the vulnerability was diluted when it got to me, but I do understand the struggle. I also understand how little you actually are doing. You are nobly crusading against the liquid sugar bombs called sugary drinks. And the fast food customer who nobly gives up that 36-ounce bucket of sweet satisfaction is going to feel noble, even healthy, while eating those sugary chicken nuggets, sugary hamburger buns, sugary sauces, and sugary salad dressings. These aren't sugar bombs, they're just sugar bullets. What are you going to do about those? Thank you, President Breed.
Thank you very much. Next speaker, please.
Good afternoon. My name is Kati Hawkins Okori, and I stand here in memory of Antoinisha, who was shot and killed in front of the Bayview Hunters Point Foundation's youth services 8 years ago today. The youth at that program were there to see her body lie under a turf for a long time. That was one of my last responses as the critical incident response team. I was the sole responder that day, that Friday. And the T-shirt that I wear was a campaign we had in 1988 with actor Ben Vereen. Stop the killing, start the healing. And it has gotten no better. I'm glad that you have the gun buyback Saturday and would hope that when you get through selling your gun, turning them in, over here please, that you continue on to San Francisco State, where BCA Rafiki Wellness is having a health summit all day long. San Francisco State will be giving you breakfast and lunch, where we want you to heal your bodies. Come out. We will be having lectures, and we will be helping you with your mental health to help you to ease your stress, which would help some of this craziness out here, and helping people to learn to get along and to help people to do things that would stop some of this craziness in this city. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Good evening. My name Vladimir. I am 83 years old, Holocaust survivor, and now I am homeless. Why? Because America is the most fascist country in the world. In San Francisco, police who evicted me without any reason make it fascism in United States. In your board of supervisors, nobody, I applied to all of you, and nobody of you wanted to help to find why it's 83 years old Holocaust survivor is on the street of San Francisco. By the way, do you know that people who's on the street eating from the garbage can, drinking from the garbage can, and they are not people. We can't call them people. We need to call them animals because they are not doing what human being is doing. I believe that even Hitler didn't do what you do. Your board of supervisors, your Mr. Lee, fascism.
Thank you very much. Next speaker, please.
Good afternoon, supervisors. My name is Diana Scott, and I'm a resident of the Outer Sunset and have been active in the Coalition to Save City College of San Francisco. I'd like to thank Supervisors Kim, Mar, and Campos for proposing item number 30, which would restore classes to the Tenderloin area that have been abruptly ended by the closure of 750 Eddy. And I think that the nature of this closure, its suddenness, abruptness, lack of advance notice, is more evidence of poor planning and questionable judgment as well as disregard of students and faculty at City College, and underlines the urgency of a resolution this board made over a year ago to immediately restore the Board of Trustees to guide decisions at City College. This decision also undercuts efforts which have been costly and only partly effective to increase enrollment. And the school really has to come back to serve the whole community. And in this case, residents who are very strongly in need of classes in basic education, which is what's been sacrificed. So I ask you to both approve this resolution, this measure, and take further measures to make sure that pieces of City College aren't sold off piece by piece under the guise of dropping enrollment, and that better decisions are made in the future by democratically elected Board of Trustees at City College. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next speaker, please.
Good afternoon. My name is Yen Ding, and I'm here to voice my concern as a resident here in San Francisco, but as well as a person who works in the community. I work at the Vietnamese Youth Development Center, and I'm here to voice the concern of the closing of the City College campus at 750 Eddy Street, and I want to share how much impact that is happening to our families. I think that the 750 campus is unique itself, is it has been serving many, many newcomers and families and immigrants like my family when we came here in the 80s as refugees from Vietnam, and that closing this campus suddenly was something that I think that was in a process that's not transparent, and it's not giving the opportunity for the community to, share what their concerns are. And so I think that I'm hoping that the supervisors and to take a look at this closely, and to hope to maybe having the CCSF come up with concrete plan to replace all these classes that are impacting for our new immigrants and families here in the Tenderloin. And so because I know that learning a new language is a big barrier for many new immigrants, and many families are living in the Tenderloin and need that campus to be accessible to them. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next speaker, please.
Good evening. I'm Samantha from Young Workers United, and we're here with a coalition of a lot of folks that are going to be talking about City College. Young Workers United does a lot of presentations to the ESL classes, and a lot of our members take ESL classes. And recently I did a presentation to an ESL class that used to be at the Civic Center location and is now at the Mission campus, and it was about 6 people in that classroom, and the professor spoke about how if the class was held at the Civic Center campus, there would be about 40 individuals in the class. And so I talked a little bit to the individuals that were in the class, and a lot of them were immigrants and older individuals, and they discussed how before at the Civic Center campus, they could easily walk to campus. And it would take them, 10 minutes to walk to campus, and now it was taking them about an hour to get to the Mission campus. And so this was a big issue for them. And a lot of the ESL classes are every day a week, or once every 5 days a week. And so money was also an issue for them, right? How were they going to be able to afford transportation to get to these different campuses? And so they had to now cut back the amount of classes that they were going to, because they couldn't afford to go to class every single day of the week. And so I really think that it's important that we reopen a Tenderloin campus as soon as possible, so these individuals can go to class every single day and continue to learn and grow. So I urge you guys to support this, and thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Next speaker, please.
Hi, my name is Sergio Lopez. I'm part of the coalition for the Save City College. So I just want to say I'm here because I'm a student from City College. I know the great with the City College administration closer to the Civic Center campus because they don't know how the Civic Center campus closet is impacting our community, our Tenderloin community. So I don't know if they know how important is the classes for all the students, all the people who live in the Tenderloin area. And I'm here to say thanks to Supervisor King and Supervisor Campos to support a little bit us. And I want to ask all of the rest of the supervisor, please help our coalition to keep open our Civic Center campus for District 6. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next speaker, please.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Derek Brown, and I'm supporter of CHP and TNDC housing. And I want to also talk about opening up City College in the Tenderloin, how important it is for free computers and a second language for those who speak another language. And I also want to thank Supervisor Kim, Compost, Mark, and Yee, and hope that other supervisors support this free education in San Francisco. Better jobs. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next speaker, please.
Good afternoon, Supervisors. My name is James Tracy. I'm the Director of Community Organizing and Resident Engagement for Community Housing Partnership. Getting 750 Eddie back is high up on our agenda for the exact reasons that Mr. Brown mentioned. When we can't talk about self-sufficiency, we can't talk about bridging the digital divide, and we cannot talk about immigrant justice within our neighborhood without these resources coming back. We urge a unanimous show of support for this very important resolution, and we urge all of you to join with us to turn up the heat on City College to make sure that they commit to respecting the Central City by agreeing to a realistic schedule to bring back City College to the Tenderloin, to 750 Eddy, and also need to flag that if they do not do so within 3 years, there is about $1 million in state money that will disappear very quickly. So we appreciate the support of all who have shown so far, and we'd like to see a unanimous vote. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next speaker, please.
Good afternoon. My name is Alisa Messer. I'm an English teacher at City College, and I'm with AFT 2121, the faculty union here. We've been working with this coalition of folks in the Central City to defend our Civic Center campus. I am really looking forward to the day when I get to come before you and tell you that City College is safe, that we've done it, that City College is here for another 80 years, but we're not there yet. I really wish we were, but we're not. So we're very concerned about the sudden closure of the Civic Center campus and what that's doing to the Tenderloin community and to the college in general. There were about 1,000 students a semester at the Civic Center campus at 750 Eddy. This semester, it looks like there are less than 400 of those students, maybe more like 300 of those students who have made their way into classes. And you've already heard that those students aren't necessarily taking classes every day anymore as they were. So access has really been restricted. The lease that has been discussed by the City College administration with the Art Institute, which would be a temporary replacement for this campus, is not yet set. We're not sure what's happening with it. There are a lot of questions. So it's imperative that there be a place for these students that is in their neighborhood, and then it's imperative that we see a quick timeline and that we really make sure that we're returning to 750 Eddy, that we're getting that building seismically safe and ready, and that those students are able to return to their home. I really want to just take a moment to thank the supervisors. All of you have been involved in being vigilant for City College of San Francisco, and this is another example of that. And so we ask for your continuing vigilance and your leadership as we work to hold the whole community accountable to make sure that City College is here for all of our students for another 80 years. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next speaker, please.
I'm Dwayne Sears. I'm with Community Housing Partnership, and I believe the closure of this college is preparation was not noticed. Well, I just know that it should be left open, and if they're going to close it due to the earthquake retro, they should have another place for these students to go while that's happening, and I'm just all for it to be open. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next speaker, please.
Hi, I'm Naxal Rama with Community Housing Partnership, and I just want to remind everybody excuse me, some of the barriers that folks face in the Tenderloin. We have families that have children that need to find childcare. We have immigrants that have to travel through the community to go to different places, and SRO residents who most of their days are made up with doctor's appointments and other appointments. And so it's not as simple as just saying, oh, you can go across town to another campus. And I think we need to encourage people to have a quality education in one of our most disenfranchised communities. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next speaker, please.
All right. Hello, I'm Larry. I need the light. This shows you a picture. Is this it? Of me back in 2003, examiner, read for progress. And now today we have Evergreen. So that's 15 years, and this shows us the talented 25 in Selma and what they're going to do for us. And I want to thank you all for being here on St. Patrick's Day, because the reason I'm here and dressed like this, because of Terrence Hallinan, the greatest Irishman who took us to the Millennium Million Marijuana March. That's why they have marijuana in 25 states. The word came out of here. And I want to say, as I seen Martin Luther King up on Market and Noe last night, his face there saying that AIDS is a civil rights. You know, I have an Arthur Ashe tennis racket here, and he said AIDS was never the problem as much as racism. His biggest fight was racism. And we know our policemen and firemen, San Francisco, we're retracting. Something's going on, you know, that with the success, you know, we should not be going on, calling people monkeys, dealing with people, sexualities. We're not dealing with it in a way, and we expect the city, the mayor, and the country to stand up. Selma to San Francisco. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next speaker, please.
Thank you. Tom Gilberti, 2000 South Beachmino Apartments. Why do we educate? Why do we educate? To learn. And it's to learn is something we do, hopefully, all of our life. And with respect to a Women's Month, History Month, I'm going to kind of go back a little bit and stay for probably the last time about those books that I read. The one is called Dr. Mary's Monkey. Overhead, please. Can we close that up at all?
I don't think so.
SFG TV, could you zoom in? Thank you.
Thank you. Time goes away. A little back up a little bit, guys. Hello. Anyway, Dr. Mary's Monkey is a story about a woman who ran laboratories for cancer in New Orleans in the late 50s and 60s. World-renowned, mysterious death. She hires a gal, recruits a gal, who is like our Intel Scholar winners from last week, because this gal, a young woman, could keep cancer alive in a culture longer than anybody else in the country. And so that girl turns out to be the author of Me and Lee. She meets Lee Harvey Oswald in the last 6 months of their life. both very talented women, both good stories. Next one is, I mentioned The Warning, Brooksley Born, Frontline. If you can pick this up, see how one lone woman plays Gary Cooper in High Noon to Clinton, Greenspan, Rubens, and Summer, and loses, and the country loses, and we are still losing. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any other members from the public who'd like to provide any public comment at this time? Seeing none, public comment is closed. Madam Clerk, can you please read the adoption without committee reference?
Items 29 through 32 comprise the immediate adoption calendar. These items may be enacted by a single roll call vote. Unless a member objects, a matter can be removed and considered separately.
Supervisor Christensen.
I'd like to pull out the City College item.
Okay. Item number 30?
Yes.
Okay. Supervisor Avalos?
29, please.
Okay. Madam Clerk, can you please call the roll for item number 31 and 32?
On items 31 and 32, Supervisor Marr.
Aye.
Marr, aye. Supervisor Tang?
Aye.
Tang, aye. Supervisor Yee?
Aye.
Yee, aye. Supervisor Avalos?
Aye.
Avalos, aye. Supervisor Breed?
Aye.
Breed, aye. Supervisor Campos?
Aye.
Campos, aye. Supervisor Christensen?
Aye.
Christensen, aye. Supervisor Cohen?
Aye.
Cohen, aye. Supervisor Farrell? Farrell, aye. Supervisor Kim? Kim, aye. There are 10 ayes.
Okay, those items passed unanimously. Madam Clerk, can we go back to item number 29?
Item 29 is a resolution to declare it is the intention of this Board of Supervisors to work with other cities to prevail upon the owners of delinquent mortgages to sell these at-risk loans to qualified nonprofits that have the funding and infrastructure to purchase, restructure, and hold the mortgages in order to prevent foreclosure and help keep struggling homeowners in their homes.
Supervisor Avalos.
Thank you, President Breed. Colleagues across the country and even in parts of San Francisco, like the southern and southeast part of San Francisco, there are millions of distressed mortgages. Of course, not millions in our part of San Francisco, but many thousands. And there's been a plan in place to really assure that there can be greater local control and support from nonprofit organizations to help households struggling with their mortgages. Right now, there are many banks who own these distressed, struggling mortgages, and often they sell these mortgages up to Wall Street, taken over by hedge funds, which don't have the intent of helping homeowners, but mostly have the intent of making money off of distressed mortgages. When we actually negotiate these mortgages to be sold to community development financial institutions, nonprofit organizations, they actually have the goal of not making money, but helping households struggling with their mortgages to stay in their homes, to keep their property, to maintain their wealth, and actually maintain the wealth in their communities. This was an essential part of what the Occupy movement was about. And we saw that there were major banks across the country that got bailed out of $800 billion, and with that bailout, they did not actually translate that money into ways that support local economies, support households struggling with defaults and foreclosures. They took that money and were very stingy about helping households modify their loans. So we're trying to see if there's a way we can actually work together with other cities around the country to negotiate with the banks to actually enable us to have greater control to support households that need to stay in our cities, that need to thrive in our cities, that need to be able to maintain their properties, their homes, and what little wealth they can have that are in their homes. So hopefully, colleagues, we'll have your support on this measure. Some of you have already indicated that you will do so, and we hope to actually move this forward with other cities around the country. Already, the cities of Richmond, California, and Newark, New Jersey are moving forward with this idea. We're also working with other cities around the country as well through the Local Progress Organization, which many of us are members of, to actually write a letter to the FHA director of the Housing Urban Development Department to get the FHA director to encourage Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac not to sell distressed mortgages to Wall Street, but actually to community development financial institutions as well. If that one effort is done, we can make sure that many households can actually thrive and not lose their property to Wall Street speculators. It makes so much sense that we use our bailout that our federal government had done for these banks years ago in ways to actually support our working people here in San Francisco and across the country. Colleagues, I hope to have your support. Thank you.
Thank you. Colleagues, can we take this item, same house, same call? Without objection, this resolution is adopted unanimously. Madam Clerk, can you please call item number 30?
Item 30 is a resolution to urge the administration of City College of San Francisco to present a construction plan for the seismic retrofitting of the Civic Center campus at 750 Eddy Street, and further urging the provision of temporary classrooms by CCSF to be located in the Central City Tenderloin area for all classes that have been displaced by the decision to close the Civic Center campus, in order that the students affected by this decision are able to continue to pursue higher education.
Supervisor Christensen.
I'll try to be brief. I just wanted to thank Supervisor Kim for bringing this matter to our attention and for her invitation to me to be a co-sponsor for it, which I'm happy to do. I've looked further into the matter, and it is distressing. I think we spent a lot of time in the last couple years talking about how important City College is in an effort to draw attention to the need to save it. This situation is distressing also, not only because of the abrupt closing, but because there was apparently a great deal of foreknowledge that this was going to happen, and not much action taken to prevent it or to mitigate it, and certainly no notice to the students. That's unfortunate. I think, as the two of the speakers mentioned, there is an effort currently underway to provide temporary locations, which is encouraging. But I think if there's anything that we as the Board of Supervisors can do to encourage a more permanent solution, then we should do it. There is, as another speaker mentioned, a significant amount of money at risk if the building is not opened within 3 years. So it certainly seems like a plan ought to be in place now in order to enable that building to reopen in time to keep that funding secure. So thank you, Supervisor Kim, and I'm happy to add my boost to this effort.
Thank you. Supervisor Kim.
Thank you. I did speak about this already last week, and I think Supervisor Christensen really summarized very well what has been going on with the very sudden closure of the Civic Center campus in the Tenderloin neighborhood, and how distressing this was for so many of our residents that really depend on this campus to be able to take English as a second language classes and other skill set training classes to enhance their employability here in the city. I just want to recognize some additional supervisors who will be supporting as co-sponsors this measure, and I want to acknowledge them. Of course, I want to thank Supervisor Marr and Campos, but also want to recognize Supervisors Yee, Christensen, and Avalos, who also want to add their names as a co-sponsor. It is really great to have broad support for this resolution.
Thank you. Supervisor Marr.
Yeah, I just wanted to quickly say thank you to Supervisor Kim and Campos and others, but especially to the Central City Coalition for Public Education for creating an education campaign around this so that not just the City College students, but the families and everybody that City College benefits, not only in the Central City, Tenderloin area, but throughout the city, know that this issue is so important to our communities. I wanted to say that May 7th is the date that we've set for the hearing at the Public Safety Neighborhood Services Committee that I and a number of us called for a couple weeks ago. So that's in 3 weeks. Hopefully that's enough time to hear in many ways what will happen to 750 Eddy and the timelines and the other demands of the coalition. So I just thank the people for testifying today and my colleagues for supporting this today as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Yee.
Yeah, just a quick word. Thanks, Supervisor Kim, for bringing this resolution to us. There's several campuses spread out throughout San Francisco, and if this had happened in any of the other campuses, well, first of all, it wouldn't have happened. And I think it was outrageous the way it even happened. There was no notice, not only to students, there was no notice to teachers. And basically, there was just a sign that was posted, and people showed up and said, oh my God, there's nothing here. And the way it was done, it's really incredible that the City College institution that I continue to support would do this to people in San Francisco. So I urge everybody to strongly support this resolution.
Thank you. Seeing no other names on the roster, can we take this item, same house, same call? Without objection, this resolution passes unanimously. Madam Clerk, can you please read the imperative agenda item?
Offered by Supervisor Farrell, a resolution declaring March 17, 2015 as Father Brendan McBride Day in the City and County of San Francisco.
Okay, colleagues, we have an imperative item which requires the board to adopt two separate findings by two-thirds vote before unanimous adoption of the item itself. So let's take the findings, either purely commendatory, which it is my understanding that from Supervisor Mark Farrell, this is commendatory, and also the need to take action came to the attention of the board after the agenda was posted. So Supervisor Farrell, would you like to move that we move forward with those two particular findings?
I'd like to make that motion.
Okay, moved by Supervisor Farrell, seconded by Supervisor Tang. Without objection, we can move forward with the findings unanimously. And on the substance of the underlining item, can we take it without objection? Without objection, the resolution is adopted unanimously. Madam Clerk, can you please read are there any other items before us today?
I have two in memoriams, Madam President, offered by Supervisor Marr for the late Mr. Alfred Yee and on behalf of Supervisor Campos for the late Mr. Mohammed Shahibi.
Okay, and Madam Clerk, are there any more items before us today?
That concludes our business for today.
Okay, thank you everyone. Happy St. Patrick's Day. We are adjourned.